You're listening to the Vibrant Vision Podcast, a podcast designed to help you get clarity, increase your confidence, and cultivate the most important connections so you can have the impact you were created to make. I'm your host, Amanda Kerrigan. Now let's get to making that vibrant vision a reality. Hi there, welcome to episode 24 of the Vibrant Vision Podcast. We're talking a little bit about revitalizing your vibrant vision, things that kind of get in your way. So last week we talked about the lack of clarity and clarity in the messy middle. Right now we're in the middle of the year and your goals might feel a little far away. And life gets so busy and so crazy, and frankly, it gets a little overwhelming. And this overwhelm is one of the big reasons that my clients lack clarity and that they lose sight of that vision that they're working toward. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And a lot of reasons they are feeling overwhelmed, and you might be feeling overwhelmed as well, is too much to do, too many decisions to make, too much transition, too many heartbreaking circumstances in the world, and all of these things add up to this overwhelm. And we feel like we're drowning in feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. And it leads us to this fight, flight, or freeze mentality when we get overwhelmed. If we're fighting, in the case of overwhelm, we just tend to work harder and harder and harder. We just hit that grindstone more and more and more. And it's like that rise and grind mentality that used to be so popular in the entrepreneurial world. And if it's flight, we really engage in escapism, these escape activities. So we might be shopping, watching TV, just even substance abuse in its most extreme form. But a lot of times we just depend on that glass of wine to get us to wind down at the end of the day, which is not healthy. Or freeze. We feel like we can't move. We have panic attacks. We just sit there on the couch. Have you ever done this where you're just like staring at the wall going, oh my gosh, I cannot do this anymore. I just don't know what to do anymore. And Merriam-Webster defines overwhelm as to affect someone very strongly, to cause someone to have too many things to deal with, to defeat someone or something. And I'm just overwhelmed thinking about that definition. And it really just inspires me to say, how do we get out of this? What do we do to get rid of this feeling of overwhelm? Because it's stopping so many people in their tracks, especially these days. So why are we overwhelmed? First of all, stress. We have high adrenaline, high cortisol, which feels really good until those hormones leave us with no ability to self-monitor. What does that mean? So adrenaline, you guys all know what that means. It really allows us to have that fight, flight, or freeze mentality. And so when we're jacked up on adrenaline and we're relying on it to get through the day, then we crash. Or if we have high cortisol, especially at night, then we can't sleep. And so if we're not sleeping, we're crashing. We have no ability to say, hey, these emotions are a little out of control. And we end up snapping at our spouse or our kids or our friends or our family. And that's just not a productive way to handle things. And so what I tell my clients is this: think halt. Are you hungry or angry or lonely or tired? Check in, because if you are any of these things, then you are not going to be able to self-monitor. So figure out what you need in this moment, because if you allow this negative state to continue, you're going to have things that happen that are not in alignment with what you want to do. So if you're hungry, go ahead and get something to eat. If you're angry, do something to manage that. Go for a walk, go for a run, talk to a friend, vent, journal, whatever it takes. Are you lonely? Go cuddle with your pet. Go talk to a friend. Again, get that connection piece in there. And if you're tired, get some rest, because there's nothing wrong with resting. In ancient times, stress was a temporary state. The lion's chasing me. Whew, we made it through. We got rid of the lion, whatever it is. But now it feels like time is always chasing us. And we never get a break from the stress hormones raging through our bloodstreams. The next thing is that we struggle on where to put our attention. Where do we put this attention? And we are bombarded with things all day, every day. Slack messages, emails, notifications, social media, text messages from friends and family needing things, and it just never ends. This barrage is just never ending. The third reason we feel overwhelmed is that we don't optimize performance. Now, that sounds very fancy, but it's really not. We just do the same things over and over, and maybe they're effective, maybe they're not, but then we expect different results. And we're not going to feel less overwhelmed unless we do something different. My clients are most often female entrepreneurs, and so they are not only juggling work across times, they are awake. My clients are entrepreneurs. So not only are they juggling work across when they're at work, but they're just juggling when they're awake. And so they're not really present and they just can't show up fully. And then they get overwhelmed because they have no work-life balance. And that's where optimizing performance really comes in. Are we doing the right things at the right time? And that's what optimizing performance is. And so the result is we toggle from really high activity to really low activity. I mean, we go from this frenetic state to just being done. And that's not the best way to live because there's a better way to manage overwhelm. And I want to start with some things that you can do today to feel less overwhelmed. So I want you to think of your life right now as a donut. So the center of this donut is your comfort zone. It's where you're just chilling, you're doing your thing, you feel safe, you feel unchallenged. It's really kind of where we unconsciously go when we want to feel better or when we're just operating on autopilot. Again, that not optimizing performance. It's familiar. So this is us sitting on the couch after a long day, not doing anything physically challenging, just watching TV, maybe having a bag of chips instead of going and working that stress out at the gym because that's uncomfortable, right? These difficulty levels, if you think about your difficulty scale on a scale of 1 to 5, these are your ones and twos where things are really, really easy, not difficult at all. Spending time here isn't really innately bad. I mean, we need time to recharge. We need time in our comfort zone because a lot of times people are like, oh, you have to be outside your comfort zone. Yeah, you do, but not all the time. In fact, being in our comfort zone is good. It's just when we're in our comfort zone, when we should be out of our comfort zone, that life begins to be a little bit problematic. So that's the first thing, is the center of the donut, our comfort zone. So the next one is the learning zone. This is like the main part of the donut. This is where like the jelly is in the jelly-filled donut. This is the zone where you have to put your attention into getting those results, but you're not completely outside of where you're feeling just horrified at life. It's not too hard. It just takes some level of awareness. It's really just allowing yourself to say, okay, I can do one more push-up, or I can make that sales call to my client, or I can release this program even though it's not perfect. This is the thing that kept my friend pushing through her first 15-mile bike race, even though she crashed really hard and she wasn't feeling it. She just said, you know what, I'm going to finish. I'm just going to push myself. And she did. And she knows now that she can do 15-mile bike races. So on your difficulty scale, these are your 3s and 4s. These are challenging, but you're not feeling like you're just out there on the edge. Now, the very edge of the donut is what I've heard referred to as the terror's edge. This is where you are completely overwhelmed. It's also been called the delusional zone because we have no perspective. So a lot of times we'll end up in analysis paralysis because we just are not sure how to move forward. It's so far out on the edge, we feel like we might fall off the cliff at any moment. So if we spend life in our learning zone, our donut grows. if we spend life in our comfort zone or on that terror's edge, life shrinks, our donut shrinks. So how do we start to optimize things so that they become threes and fours, so that we're not just doing things that are one and twos, but we're not hanging out on that very terror's edge 5 location on our donut? And that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is clear the stage. So I was a drama nerd when I was in middle and high school, and I did several plays, and sometimes I was on stage. I was performing. And sometimes I was off stage and someone else was on stage. And if the whole cast was on stage, we were performing together. None of us were distracting from the show. Like at our curtain call, all of us would come back on stage and we were all performing together. And in his book, Your Brain at Work, David Rock talks about this. Your brain is kind of like a stage. And if you have too many characters on stage doing too many different things, then your brain gets overwhelmed and shuts down. So when these thoughts, these actors don't leave the stage, our brain just cannot function. And overloading the stage can lead to memory loss. What my grandma refers to the old timers disease. But I'm in my 30s and I feel like I have old timers disease sometimes. Why? Because I'm not clearing the stage. So you've got to do something to clear the stage. And that's really what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about these other steps in our next episode, but really, how do we clear the stage? Because if you can clear the stage, you can get out of overwhelm. So first of all, if you have the luxury, just take a short nap, 15 to 20 minutes. If you need a longer nap, set your alarm for 90 minutes because that's about a sleep cycle. Any longer and you probably won't be able to sleep at night. Eat some glucose-rich foods. Again, hungry, angry. Sometimes we just need a little pick-me-up. And those glucose-rich foods will give your brain the sugar to really just say, okay, we can power through. So what are those glucose-rich foods? Because you don't want to be reaching for any high sugar food. These are fruits like bananas, grapes, apples, melon, things that are going to be rich in that natural sugar that can be converted to glucose quickly, but also not very bad for you. That's going to spike your blood sugar and then send you into this funk later on. So the next one is exercise. Yeah, I know. Everybody's least favorite activity, but exercise should be fun. So even if you just get up and dance to a song or just go for a nice walk around your neighborhood and observe what's going on. And this morning I was walking my dog and there were birds singing outside and I just wanted to just hang out in that moment. And I was getting a little bit of movement in, replacing those stress hormones that I talked about, the cortisol and adrenaline, with endorphins. And that will really help get us back into our optimizing performance. The next one is prayer and meditation. And I know this is all the rage, but certain things happen when we pray and we meditate in our brain. Our reflective parts of our brain are activated, and that really kind of suppresses the action-taking parts of our brains, that prefrontal cortex. It's always like, okay, what do we do next? What do we do next? And I feel like mine is super active, and I don't know if you feel the same way, where it's like, okay, next I have to do. And sometimes we just need to take a break. And so we just need to have those reflective times that will clear our stage, like intermission, and allow us to come back refreshed. You know, maybe we've had our water, and we come back refreshed in our costume change, and we put the right actors on our stage because we've done this prayer and meditation and exercise and had some healthy foods and taken a nap. And finally, the best way that I know to clear the stage is to do what I call a mind sweep. So grab a piece of paper and a pen. Do not do this on your computer because writing activates different parts of your brain than typing does. So when I do this, I don't talk about being blind very often, but some of you must know that I'm blind. And so I will intentionally braille this. I will not type it. So that's my version of handwriting. So I'll just grab my list and I will write out everything that is on my to-do list, regardless of whether it's already on my to-do list or not, because my brain, what happens is our brains will add all of these things to our to-do list, and then it's not like, oh, I already have milk on the list. I don't need to add that. It just adds it to the bottom. So we might have 58 things to do in our brain, but only like 15 to do when we make our list. And this mind sweep will help get this out of our temporary memory storage, put it on our piece of paper, and that way we can look at it and just kind of strategize. So those are really the best ways that I know is to do that mind sweep, get all of those things out on paper, and then strategize how you're going to handle that. Sometimes it might feel a little overwhelming to write these things down, but then ask yourself, when does this have to be done? Because something that I always do is, oh my gosh, it all has to be done right now. No, it doesn't. It does not all have to be done right now. What has to be done right now is one or two things. And so really, that's what it takes. And so again, there are ways that you can get out of overwhelm. And the biggest one is to do this mind sweep or take a nap, eat some delicious glucose-rich foods, take a walk, do a little bit of exercise, dance, and pray and meditate. Just sit down and tell God what is going on, because that will activate those reflective portions of your brain. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and like you need a little bit more support, I just invite you to book a call with me. This will allow you to see other possibilities and figure out where you can optimize that performance so that you are doing your best work. Next week, we're going to be talking about a few more things that you can do to get out of overwhelm and start moving forward. So I look forward to sharing that next episode with you. If you have any questions, just again, book that call with me, because I would love to support you on your journey. And I will talk to you next episode. Again, live your vibrant vision.